If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Granger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Granger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRANGER, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is the GEM segment, a product of WBNN, and I'm your host, Genesis Amaris Kemp. We are on air live from Lagos. You can call in by dialing 717-734-6904. Use our show ID 546-1150#. Then press 1 pound to join the conversation, brought to you by Ngozi Time Multimedia. And if you're interested in joining the conversation by sharing some comments, asking questions of myself or my panelists, hit that *2. And tonight's topic, we are going to be diving into navigating through the pain. And I'm sure we have all navigated in some form or fashion through pain. And how do you get back up after life circumstances? This is going to be the overarching theme tonight, and we're going to dive in with 3 amazing panelists. So one of my panelists is Chelsea DeVries, and I'm going to share a little bit more about her. Then we also have Terrain Brown, and then Gregory Proctor. And one of my house rules is please refrain from using profanity. This is a profanity-free show. Respect myself and my guests, and we will do the same to respect you. Now that we have some housekeeping rules out of the way, I want to start introducing my guest tonight. So I'm going to start off and let you know a little bit more about who Chelsea is. She is the only woman on the panel tonight, so let me share a little bit more about her. So Chelsea DeVries wanted to be a writer at the age of 7. Her first publishing credit came at the age of 14 with a poem in a student anthology. She then wrote nonstop while doing IB classes in high school. She published 2 young adult novels while still in high school, which after over 10 years, she rewrote as an NA romance that she looks to put out as her next publication. She is a seeker of justice and uses her words to free this world's outcasted, peculiar, and underdogs from the chains that bind them. When not writing, she runs and does PR for authors and musicians with her bookish brand, The Smart Cookie Files. Though she's Florida born and raised, she has New Jersey in her veins, and she currently lives in Hudson, Florida with her squad of 2 dogs. And some of the other things, a little known fact, in October 2020, she was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism, but that did not stop her. Then I'm also going to tell you a little bit more about the second panelist, which is Mr. Gregory Proctor. Gregory is no stranger to myself, and he has been on the podcast, Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp. But nonetheless, he is a dynamic leader with over 27 years of experience in project management, consulting, and business development across various sectors, including mining and energy. As a managing director and project controls executive, he excels in aligning strategy with execution and driving innovation. A cancer survivor, Gregory authored the international award-winning book, Faith, Strength, and Courage, sharing his journey of resilience. His unwavering determination transforms adversity into opportunity, inspiring others to lead boldly and purposefully. Gregory's expertise in project controls combined with his profound faith and positivity positions him as a beacon of hope for those facing their own challenges. And another thing that's amazing, his tagline is transforming adversity into opportunity, inspiring leadership through resilience. That's Mr. Gregory, but you're going to dive into more about who he is once I welcome on these panelists. And now let me introduce you to Mr. Terrain Brown, y'all. So Terrain, he's the Behind the Shades coaching. He stands for Change Begins with You and Happiness Starts from You. He is a finance manager and fitness enthusiast who enjoys helping others find success in three types of relationships: assisting others create happiness in their personal, professional, and romantic relationships. Brings joy to his heart. Growing up without either of his parents in his early childhood, he has taken his early pains and struggles to become a voice for others. This was the fuel to his motivation and the drive to work with others. These days, he continues to learn and walk with the journey to personal triumph towards a better tomorrow for himself and everyone he encounters. And that is who Terrain Brown is. So without further ado, I want to welcome on my three panelists tonight. I'm going to start with Chelsea. Chelsea, good evening, and please share a little fun fact about yourself that I may not have shared in your bio.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me on today, Genesis. So a fun fact about me probably would be that my company, the Smart Cookie Files, now offers book publishing as well as PR.
That is amazing. And when did y'all start offering that?
That started last January.
Okay, awesome. Good deal. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for being here and holding and sharing this space tonight, as well as sharing that fun fact. I'm going to go over now to Mr. Gregory Proctor. Gregory, welcome back. You are no stranger to my platform. How are you? And please share a fun fact tonight that I may not have mentioned in the bio.
Hi, Genesis. Thank you for having me. It's been a long time, obviously, since you and I spoke last. Let's see. One fun fact is every year I do the Camino de Santiago, which is the Way of the James. It's a very spiritual, transformative pilgrimage that goes on, or should I say, has been going on for many, many centuries. Outside of that, I have a few books coming up in the fall due to be released, and a documentary which will be released in March of 2026.
Amazing. Good deal. I'm so happy for all the things that you have going on behind the scenes. And thank you for being on the platform tonight to share and hold space with our worldwide audience. And last but not least, I want to welcome on Mr. Terrain Brown. Terrain, thank you so much for being here tonight. Please share a fun fact about yourself that was not mentioned in the bio.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the space. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Genesis?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you. So a fun fact about me is that I currently am aiming to assist those who suffer from grief. Either it's a grief and lost identity, grief of themselves or a partner. So that is something that wasn't included in my bio. It is a fun fact because I'm no stranger to grief when it comes to identity or losing someone. So I want to share that exclusively with you and your audience today. So thank you.
Oh, perfect. I love that you spilled the tea with us here on Gems. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And once again, I'm going to reset the audience for those who may just be joining in on our segment tonight. So good evening, everyone. This is the Gems segment, and I'm your host, Genesis Amaris Kemp, and this is a product of WBNN. We are live from Lagos. You can dial into the show by dialing 717-734-6904. Use our show ID 546-1150 #, then press 1 # to join the conversation brought to you by Ngozi Time Multimedia. And if you want to ask myself, Chelsea, Terrain, or Gregory a question, all you have to do is hit that *2. You can ask a question, you can share some feedback, you can share your story. And our theme for the night is navigating through the pain. And how do you get back up after life circumstances? And I want to pause and allow that to sit with you, because no matter where you are in your life right now, present day, we have all dealt with some type of pain in our life, whether young or old, and whether it was emotional, spiritual, mentally, physically, or emotionally. So my first question is going to go to my other lady that's rocking out with me. And Chelsea, this one is for you. So when it comes to trial and tribulations, how do those two words stand out to you, and what have you had to overcome? So two-part question.
So, trial and tribulation basically are something that basically makes you, it makes or breaks you. It's something that causes you an array of emotion and makes you reconsider your identity, your circumstances, and basically reach for possibly even a higher power. And for me, the biggest trial I've overcome is one that I talk about in my poetry book, Sticks and Stones. It was about surviving a season of emotional collapse that came from working in a toxic environment while quietly battling anxiety, depression, and what I later recognized as autistic burnout. I was falling in love with someone in that same space, someone I call Mr. Suncoast, and then the combination of a trauma bond, unspoken feelings, and constant gaslighting left me emotionally raw. And how I overcame it was basically writing the poetry that became Sticks and Stones, which I started while I was working there, a lot of the poems. And then as I continued to keep writing more poems, I decided that, yes, this was becoming a collection. And I wanted to share it in order to give people power to overcome toxic situations, toxic relationships, or anything that causes you like to be in an unwell state mentally and emotionally, and to realize that you aren't meant to drown in your pain, but you are supposed to rise above it.
Beautifully, beautifully. And I love how you channeled some of the things that you were going through and you expressed it through writing and creativity, and you connected with the pain, but you released it, letting yourself know that I'm releasing this pain for myself, but in the process I'm going to help somebody else that is going to come to read this information. And we never understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sometimes situations not only happen to us, but they also happen for us to grow and accelerate, so we may extend that olive branch for somebody else. Would you agree with that statement?
I absolutely would agree. In the time that I was living in that circumstance, I was like, not feeling that, but definitely now, looking back, I am really, grateful that I came through it because of the poetry, and then seeing how much the poetry has helped others really has helped me feel like come through a big arc on my healing journey.
And thank you so much, Chelsea, for sharing that. And you're going to see how this conversation is going to be interwoven based on, our other panelists, Terrain Brown and Gregory. So, Gregory, I'm going to jump over to you, and I want you to share, what does trial and tribulation mean to you? That's question number one. And how have you had to overcome? Because you went through your stint of overcoming in various aspects.
Well, I think trials and tribulations, from my own personal experience, it's really the journey that we go through when adversity or challenges have been placed in our lives, and how we cope, deal, and make decisions as to whether or not we see ourselves making it through the storm. In my case, being diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a high-risk blood cancer, back in 2021, there was a trial of dealing with the cancer, dealing with the disease. And for me, the tribulation of trying to reconcile, to cope, to understand, really to accept what the Lord and our Savior had put forth on me, to be able to kind of weather the storm. And for me, a lot of what I dealt with over the next 4 years was, as our other panelists had mentioned, was pretty much an emotional, financial, toxic roller coaster of just trying to deal with all of the uncertainty with my life and not having a clear path of being able to console with the fallacy of where will I be once all of this is said and done. Is the disease curable, or will there be a cure, at the end of this? And all of those things really hit me like a ton of bricks. And if you've ever had a circumstance where you feel like the rug has been pulled from underneath you, or you just don't know where to turn, we begin to realize as we go through these trials and tribulations that from our own personal strength that's built into each and everyone's DNA is our indomitable human will to live, to persevere, to overcome. It's really our mental fortitude. And for me, I really poured into, and I think someone has mentioned this already, I poured into writing as a therapeutic aspect to kind of help me psychologically deal with the traumas that I was going through. I also relied on my community. I relied on, my faith, and I relied on my strength and things that had allowed for me to make it through the first 50 years of my life prior to my diagnosis. And to end this, overcoming comes down to, as I stated before, it's a mindset. Your body's going to go through pain, whatever that may be, whether it's emotional or physical. And you really have to understand that it comes down to putting one foot in front of the other and allowing for yourself not to think too far in the future and to overcome those trials and tribulations and believe and trust that things will get better at the end of the day.
Wow, that was a lot. And I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So during the part of you being diagnosed with your cancer, there was thoughts if you were gonna make it through. Then during your process, you had to get perspective. And while you got that perspective, you used writing as something that was therapeutic to help you, go through it. But it also sounds like your strength came from knowing that you were going to make it on the other side of cancer, and cancer wasn't going to define you or keep you stagnant in a position. And I'm just summarizing that. Would you say that I did a good job with that summary?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the onset of being diagnosed, and I don't want anybody on this call to take this wrong. It really is a shock factor. I mean, for me, I would say the first 2 weeks I dealt with, a mild case of depression, and the notion of just trying to figure out whether or not you live or die, or how the story's going to unfold, was something that, within those first couple of weeks, I couldn't reconcile in my own mind. And it took a little bit for several friends, of course, in my close circle, to really kind of wrap their arms around me unconditionally and give me the hope and the preservation that was needed to be able to, to put the mind in the right place and to begin to focus on the journey that I had to go through in order to survive and the willingness to live.
Okay. And thank you so much for just sharing that and being transparent. And I'm glad that you had that circle of close friends, but I'm also glad that you highlighted the depression, because I want to dive into that later on in this segment in case anyone within our worldwide audience may, resonate with that, because, we have all went through some form. It may not be, a lengthy depression. It may be a smart depression or some bouts. And I would be remiss if I didn't dive into that. But now I want to go to Mr. Terrain. And Terrain, I know you are a man that you're no stranger to me or the GEMS platform. We did a podcast many moons ago. So I want to ask you the same question. So when it comes to trial and tribulation, what do those words mean to you, and how do they speak to you? And how have you overcame a trial and tribulation in your life?
Absolutely, and I love this question. So what it means to me is it's a test. So one analogy I like to give, not only to myself but to those who I work with, I was like, when you face a trial or tribulation, It's on your journey, there's a fork in the road. You can either go left, you can either go right. And both of them has an outcome that may make you uncomfortable, but it's a test of the character that you have, and it's a test of the character that you will soon develop. So my own personal experience was I was suffering an identity crisis in my 20s because I had an idea of the type of person and, more importantly, the type of man that I wanted to be, but I wasn't demonstrating or harnessing the behaviors to get there. And one of the reasons why I wasn't able to do that was I didn't have supportive people around me. To me, loyalty meant that I had to be loyal to the people that I was growing up with or the people around me, regardless of how positive or negative the behavior. I was more loyal to them than I were to myself and my dreams and my goals. So what I had to do to overcome that is that I had to take the wisdom for those who've been through what I went through, the older generation. And I was fortunate enough that people took the time to speak to me and to ask me a question that I pose to everyone to ask for themselves as well. Are you currently happy with your life the way it is? And if you're not,
Mm.
what do you think you need to do to make yourself achieve the type of happiness that you want? Once I was able to answer those questions for me, for myself, I knew that there's some people who's going to be able to make this journey with me, and there's some people who are not going to make this journey with me. But I knew that I was doing what was best for me. And this goes for anyone, that may identify with people pleasing, with always putting others first, with always emptying their cup without replenishing their own. So that is how I
Mm.
overcame the trial and tribulations I felt and experienced in my life.
Wow. And thank you so much, for sharing that, Terrain. And one thing that stood out as you were speaking is the fact that you asked that question, but you also were so keen to not just ask, but to listen and feel and do a pulse check of those who were in your current circle and around your environment. And that's how you began to kind of depict who was going to go with you to the next season and chapter in your life, and are they going to carry that same wavelength as you? Because it sounded like you already knew where you were heading, and correct me if I'm wrong, you did not want to allow any distractions or anything that was not traveling on the same path as you to get in the way. Would you agree or disagree there? I don't want to misspeak.
No, you're absolutely right. I would agree with that because it was an opportunity for me to make a decision. It was my own fork in the road, and many times when you come face to face with that, I think it was Oprah who said that life will whisper, then it will shout, and then it'll be a scream, right? So there comes a point where life will tell you, it'll give you hints, but eventually it's going to say, hey, we need to make a decision. What is it that you want to make? So you're absolutely right.
And thank you so much. And now in this part of the segment, now that we all kind of spoke on our trials and tribulation, at least y'all have, I'm going to share my what trial and tribulation means to me, and then I'm going to dive a little deeper with y'all. So whenever I think about, trial and tribulation, to me, a trial is something that we're going through. It's a season in our life where sometimes you may feel like things are coming at you left, right, up, down, center, backwards, and all of that. And you may be in that season and just going through the motions. It's like one thing after another after another. So, for example, one of my trials was going through the oil and gas industry. The market hit a negative 37. This Fortune 500 company that I was working for said that they were going to do voluntary and involuntary layoffs. Then around that time, my father gets paralyzed from the waist down. Then he goes through that little journey. My dad ends up passing away. I take a spiritual leap of faith and listen to my discernment, intuition, go visit my family down in the West Indies. I get back. As soon as I got back to U.S. soil, 2 weeks later after being back in the U.S., my grandmother, who was 99 years old, passes away. Then backing up, my dad's mother ends up passing away, and she wanted to be buried at the feet of she wanted to be buried at the feet of my father. So imagine, buried my father in December 2020, 8 months later, my grandmother passes away. I go on a trip to the West Indies, come back to the U.S. 2 weeks. My mother's mother passed away, my other grandmother. And there's some other stuff that happened. So that's a trial. The tribulation for me was battling. I don't want to say demons, but my inner and external personal conflicts. What am I going to do? Am I going to do this or am I going to do that? Am I good enough? Those egos are talking to me. I like to say positive Patty and negative Nancy. Some of those were interpersonal tribulations that I went through. So I had some forms of trial and tribulation. And also, let's throw a kicker there. My spouse and I are living on Faith and Hope Street. We are both unemployed. I end up taking the severance package. My husband, who is in the culinary field, he was executive chef at the time. Everything's closed for COVID, right? Far from perfect vision, but a slap of reality. And we're over here living off of severance or whatnot. The kicker, I found out that I'm pregnant. We tried for 7.5 years, and I literally thought something was wrong with my body, but it was stress. It was so much stress from the hustle and bustle of, oil and gas. But sometimes God and the Holy Spirit, and for those of you who may not believe in God, maybe you say the universe, or maybe, Buddha or whoever you pray to. But I'm a woman of faith, so I'm going to say God and Jesus Christ. Sometimes he has to close a door in order for us to wake up, because we get so comfortable and conducive in certain things that we're not going to move until we're put in a position where we're forcefully led to move. So all of that happened. And one thing that helped me overcome, because I was going through grief of losing my father, my separating from my job, that, I was climbing the corporate ladder. I had the bells and whistle, to like something excited as being, pregnant. One of the things that helped me overcome was talking into the mic, because when I was telling people about my grief journey, some of the cliche things, oh, he's in a better place, or we live to die, or blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to hear that, because the relationship I had with my dad caused me to hurt in a certain way. So how did I overcome? I overcame by talking into the mic. And all I did was just talking to myself into the mic. But little did I know that was going to be the birthing point for, the GEMS podcast. And the rest is history. And by me putting out that podcast, just doing those solo episodes, it metamorphed into, interview style. And all of y'all here on this show met me through my podcast journey. And now here we are with WBNN doing a radio show tonight. But had I not been so keen to listen to that still small voice inside of me to launch out something that I was like, I don't even know nothing about a podcast, but I have this phone. I could talk into it. Who would have known where it would be today? So that's just a little, glimpse of mine, Cliff Note version. But I want to tell the audience tonight listening in is, whenever you think of a trial and tribulation, I want you to deep dive there and make it personal to yourself, because when you begin to do that inner work, that external work is going to work in and through you. Despite the hurt, despite the pain, you're going to see how something easy as breaking you can cause you to have that breakthrough where you make it through to the other side, and you realize why that situation and why that season happened to you, but also for you. So since y'all have all heard each other talk about the trial and tribulation and just some of the things you each have went through, I want y'all to take some time to see how you connect with one another. And I'm going to start with you, Chelsea, being the only woman panelist tonight. So, Chelsea, out of what you heard Terrain speak on, or Gregory, has anything from their trial and tribulation stood out to you, and do you want to pour into them?
Yeah, both of them equally stood out to me, but definitely Gregory stood out to me a lot, because I actually have a friend who has multiple myeloma, and he's still battling with it. He is a retired Navy veteran, and he's now been in his third bout of multiple myeloma, and he's still battling it. And he just like, takes it day to day, but it's really like it's at the point where the chemo and stuff just started taking it out of him. And like in that regard, I just want to say thank you so much, Gregory, for sharing your story and how you overcame that. Because I really hope that my friend is listening actually tonight, and that he will take what you share tonight and hold it dear to him and help him get through and continue to get through. But I really, your story really spoke to me.
Wow, that's amazing. Gregory, would you like to share anything back to Chelsea and her guests listening in that's battling with the same form of cancer that you overcame?
Yeah, absolutely. Dealing with multiple myeloma is something that is really an unprecedented, hideous disease that, from a standpoint of being thrown into a level of uncertainty, one must begin to realize in order to survive with the disease is how do you accept what the disease is offering you. And what I mean by that is I always use the analogy of every morning we get up, we get out of bed, we take a shower, we brush our teeth, and some of us go off to work, and maybe some of us go into our home office. But in the concept of dealing with multiple myeloma, the cliche is that not only do you do those things, but you also have to go into the clinic or the chemo room and deal with a 6 to 8 hour chemo treatment. And a lot of times there's resistance with dealing with that disease in the facet of having to sit in a chair for 6 to 8 hours. But it becomes a very humbling experience if you begin to embrace that this is a part of your routine. And so as Chelsea, talks about her friend that has multiple myeloma, one of the things that I had to overcome in my circumstance is really that acceptance. Because the resistance was there, the pity party, the worse me, why is this happening? These things all place a psychological burden on our minds and our physicality. And if we don't get to a point to where we can overcome that, the healing never actually begins. And that's so, so important. It's like a light switch when you decide that you're going to accept the journey, the trials and the tribulations, whatever a regiment that you're having to go through, that you embrace that in a way in your life that it becomes a part of who you are, you're able to begin that healing process. And that's just a nugget that I would like to leave. Now, with Terrence, as he had mentioned with the crossroads, dealing with the disease, there's a lot of crossroads. I mean, one of the things that I'll share with your listening audience is the crossroads for me is that when I was originally diagnosed, I couldn't walk. The disease placed me into an immobile situation, so I was somewhat paralyzed from the waist down. And based on that circumstance, I couldn't work. I had no sense of income. All of these things played into all of the trials and tribulations that I was going through. And so psychologically for me, it was very overwhelming. And when you're at the crossroads, you have to think about what's important. A lot of things that I looked around my house and I said, okay, there's a lot of materialistic things here. We're in the height of COVID. People need things, as far as materialistic things. What can I do to kind of keep myself and my family afloat? And we begin to get rid of some of these things. We start to realize what's more important in life is survivalship. And I think someone had mentioned what's important, with the joy in your life, what brings you happiness and content. And for me, on a burn rate of $22,500 per week for treatment, which quickly racks up any type of medical debt, one has to begin to realize very quickly, what road do you want to travel? And the road that I wanted to travel, which was most important to me, was life. And I'll end it on that note.
All right. Well, hope we haven't lost Genesis Mars Kemp. This is Dr.
No,
Oladela
I'm
Malewa Ngozi.
here.
I love it. All right. I
I'm
love the show
here.
so far. This is very, very, very comforting to me and good radio. Now back to Genesis.
Thank you so much, Dr. O. And no, I'm here. I was just sitting with that. And thank you so much, Gregory, for just sharing that. And Chelsea, for your friend that is listening tonight, if that resonates, like let him know he's loved. He can be an overcomer of this too. And dial in to the show. Like we are one WBNN, but we are a family. So for those of you that are tuning in tonight and you're liking what you heard, please dial in at 717-734-6904. Use that show ID 546-1150 pound, then press 1 pound to join the conversation, brought to you by Ngozi Time Multimedia. And if you want to come on to share a comment, ask a question, or anything along those lines, use *2. And my house rule is please refrain from using profanity on this program and respect my guests, and we will respect you too. Now, tapping back in, because once Gregory was speaking on that, he said something profound, and it was what Terrain had said about loving himself, knowing who you are, and knowing who's with you. So Terrain, based on what you heard Gregory and Chelsea share around their trials and tribulations and just pouring into each other a few minutes ago, what about their stories resonated with you so far?
Well, thank you. Yes, so there's a few things I want to say to Chelsea and Gregory. Thank you so much for sharing, because for me, what I heard now, and maybe you had this when you both are going through, is I hear a lot of courage. I hear a lot of maybe fulfillment, where you've overcome what each of you have went through. And that's something that stood out for me, because many times it can be heartbreaking, it can be discouraging when we're going through it, because the end of the tunnel is so dark and we just can't see that light. But when I hear both of their stories and what they've overcome, I'm inspired. And the way that I'm inspired is that there is a way out of whatever it is you're going through. And another thing that stood out for me is that they know people that have gone through maybe what I've gone through, maybe what Chelsea's gone through, maybe what Gregory has gone through. So not only can they relate directly, but they know other people that could benefit from this type of conversation. So that is two things that stood out for me. If I were, time permitted, if I were to pick a third thing is that hearing both of their journeys and hearing who they are today lets me know that even though we may go through something that is very difficult in our life, when we come through it, we can still find happiness. We can still smile. Even though when we look back, it was difficult, it was tough. So I want to say those are the three things I learned from both of their stories, and thank you both for sharing that tonight.
Thank you so much, Terrain, for just sharing that and pouring into them, because I really believe when we begin to listen to each other intently and we are aware of what we heard, to see how we can connect the dots, but also to just show empathy, compassion, and all of that, then it also helps us connect the dots. So my next question for tonight is, how do you remain steadfast during the storm? And I'm going to start with you, Terrain.
Oh, wow, it's tough. A part of me relies on religion and my faith to a degree. When I'm trying to keep steadfast, I like to remember my religious teachings in my younger years. Another thing that I do is I do some meditation. I reflect and I try to focus on the positives and what I can learn while walking through the storm. So those are probably two areas that keep me very steadfast, very humble, and very focused on that I can get through this, weather the storm, and the end isn't as far away as you think it is.
Okay, and thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to go to Gregory next. So Gregory, how do you remain steadfast during your storm or any storm?
Yeah, I certainly love what Terrain had mentioned. And I'd like to add a couple other nuggets to that. You know, in life, when we're going through the storm, our overall mental capacity is weakened in the notion of thinking, you know, of doubt, thinking of the challenges, and really feeling like we're succumbed to the events that have happened to us. And I want to express something here that was so essential in my journey. Certainly the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior, but having a sense of hope, putting your mind in a place of peace, having joy come into your heart and your soul, and having that uplifting support from your community and your family and the unconditional love of those that you may not even know allowed for me to remain steadfast through the storm. And I'd like to share very quickly just a short story. As I was in the throes of my cancer battle, unable to walk, a good colleague friend of mine that I'd worked with in the oil and gas decided to drive out and see me. And he had always known me for being, you know, very passionate and quite tenacious and pretty much a go-getter, you know, filled with energy and lots of joy at all points in our workings together. When he saw me, he said, "Greg, I saw you broken, and it broke my heart." And he didn't know how to cope and how to deal with the fallacy of seeing how much cancer had taken over my body and where I stood at that moment in time through the lens of his eyes. And so we spent about 24 hours together. And as he left, he decided to take it upon himself to call me every day. And one of the unique things that lifted my spirit and that kept me steadfast through this journey, through the rough bouts of dealing with the cancer, in and out of the cancer chair in the cancer room for 6 to 8 hours per day, was the fact that when he called me, we talked about work problems. We talked about solutions. We talked about the evolution of what was going on that would keep my mind away from the tumultuous thoughts that were going through dealing with the cancer. And I would have to say that was one of the most uplifting things that anyone could have ever done for me, to just keep me focused on things that they know that I was really passionate about, that brought me joy, that allowed for me to stay steadfast through the circumstances and the tribulations and trials that I was going through. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Gregory. And we're going to pause there, and we actually have our first caller for the night, y'all. So caller 1, you are on air live for the GEMS radio segment with myself, Genesis Amaris Kemp, the host, and I have 3 panelists tonight, Chelsea DeVries, Gregory Proctor, and Terrain Brown. Who are you and where are you calling in from?
Hey, Jen, it's not the ordinary, it's Unique. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Unique. How are you?
I'm blessed. I want to answer the question on my behalf as far as how to stay steadfast through any storms. You got to remain firm, have that unwavering spirit in spite of any challenges that you're faced with. And whether it's adversity, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's departure, you just got to keep on pressing forward toward the mark. You know, it's like when the storms are raging on the sea, you have to tell your ship that peace is going to be still. You have to endure everything in that storm. You can't give up the faith. And you got to always have your purpose, even in difficult times. You know, sometimes things get overwhelming that we think that it's not going to be stabilized, but it will. And long as your resilience and you have a strong foundation, of faith, your character is what's going to be your support system when there's no one else there, because at the same time, sometimes God puts you in a place that I always tell myself that God put me in a holding tank. Like when you go to jail, there's nobody coming to get you, this and that. I ain't never been to jail, but when he puts you there, you're all alone. Who do you have to talk to when you don't have a friend, when you don't have acquaintance, when you don't have nobody but yourself and you're in your room alone? The only person that you can talk to is your higher power. And if you give it to God on his and let him, if you just give it to him and put it on the shelf, when he get ready for you to have an answer, he'll give it back to you. And right now, I don't let nothing move me away from my faith, because at the end of the day, God said he'll never leave you nor forsake you. So that's when you really tap into the divine spirit and let him lead and guide you, and he will give you the strength to endure. And I'm a firm believer on that, because I can resonate with everything y'all saying on the platform. And my show will be tomorrow night. It's not the ordinary, it's unique. And I'm also with Dr. Owen Gozy on The Groove on each Saturday night at 8:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern on WBNN Communication, brought to you by Ngozi Time as well. And y'all have a blessed night. Is it anything y'all want to ask me?
So I'm gonna have Chelsea see if she wants to weigh in to really just show that feminine power. So Chelsea, would you like to ask Unique a question or share anything with her?
Is there a certain trial that you recently went through, Unique, that you'd like to share with us to add into our discussion?
Well, the trials that I've went through is I have lost 4 immediate family members this month, 3 in 1 week and 1 in the next week. But, I have to steady push forth, because I tell myself every day, when everybody walks away, when everybody leaves, when I'm going through heartbreak, I tell myself I have to have the patience of Job, because God will renew my strength. And through every test, there's a testimony. And I don't know why God is taking me through this, but I'm not going to question him, because he's building me up to be stronger and stronger every day. Like I said, when people walk away, they ain't going to always be there. But when they walk, you got to find that inner peace and strength to know that even though when anybody in this whole world walk away, you still got one person to lean on, and that's your Father in heaven.
And thank you so much, Chelsea, for asking that question. And Unique, my condolences to you for the loss of your family members. And thank you so much for just sharing your perspective on, pressing in and leaning on to the one who will never leave you or forsake you. And, just commending your faith journey. So thank you once again for calling in tonight. We also have our second caller of the night. It is our 6th reigning commissioner and 2025 International Internet Radio Hall of Fame Broadcasting Lifetime Achiever-elect, Sister Bessie the Truther.
Hi, peace and blessings, Sister Genesis, and peace and blessings to your guests. I'm Sister Bessie the Truther, and my segment is The Front Porch, and my show will be August the 12th. I'd like to say welcome back to the family of WBNN. We miss you so much, and I'm saying that We are so glad that you're back. It's so wonderful to hear your guest stories of courage, strength, and overcoming. Your guest stories are very inspiring. And in hearing these stories, it will give hope and faith to others around the world. Thank you, Genesis, for all that you do for WBNN. You are a wonderful young lady, and faith is the key to healing in our lives. Thank you to your guests, and thank you, and welcome back, my dear.
Thank you so much, Sister Bessie. And before you go, Sister Bessie, I want to allow my guests to see if they would like to ask you a question. So, Terrain or Gregory, would you like to ask Sister Bessie a question? And she is a host here on WBNN.
I guess Gregory can go first if you want, and I can go after you if that works.
Sure. Hi, Sister Betsy. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine.
So you were beginning to elaborate on the notion of how important courage is. Can you provide us with an example of how you have exemplified courage in your life?
Well, yes, I can. I've spoken on it before. I've had a lot of situations in my life, and I've overcome them. Last year, I almost died twice, but I got up. I was still sick after I got out of the hospital the second time. I had situations that I had to take care of because I was also homeless at the time. But I still got the strength, and I believed in the Almighty, and I kept going. And I achieved a lot of things that someone in my condition probably wouldn't have been able to do. And the more I prayed, the more I had my faith and believed in myself, I achieved my goals. And I didn't let my illness stop me. I didn't let what other people say stop me. And what I had been through in the past, I did not let it stop me. I kept my courage, and I'm still fighting, and I'm still here by the blessing of the Almighty. And that's my courage. I just walk with my faith, and I walk with it humbly, and I treat people like I want to be treated.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Bessie, for sharing that. And Terrain, based on what you just heard Sister Bessie say to Gregory, would you still like to ask a question, or does that give you a little bit more context?
I would definitely still like to answer a question and give me context, because Gregory asked a fantastic question. And my follow-up to that for you, Sister Betsy, would be looking back on when it came to the courage and everything that you went through and maybe what you're still going through. What do you think or were some of the obstacles that you faced then, and maybe what are some of the obstacles you face now when it comes to maintaining this level of courage?
Well, the obstacles I had back then, I went through a lot of things of some people treating me in a negative way. I went through abuse, and I had solitude. And when I got that solitude and I stayed to myself, I was able to think. I was able to concentrate more on the Almighty, and my eyes were open, and I walked more with strength. I set boundaries for myself. I set boundaries for people that were around me that caused me hurt and pain. And Today, I think I have overcome a lot of it, but I'm still healing and I'm still working on it. And I think the courage comes from within yourself. You are the person that could have courage. And I believe that you are the one that makes the decision in your life to make you succeed in anything else that you want to do. Don't never let another person tell you what you cannot do. And that's where my courage comes from.
Wow,
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I'm so glad that we're pouring into each other and we're pulling out information from one another between Chelsea, Terrain, and Gregory, because this is part of the healing journey. And if we don't speak about our trials and tribulations and navigating through the pain and how do we remain steadfast in like circumstances, then we are doing ourselves a disservice, because when we can speak about things openly, honestly, and transparent, you could start to see, metaphorically speaking, how some of the chains and bondages are broken off, and we're loosing some of the things that once held us captive in a sense. And you may not agree with the word choices I may have selected, and if you don't, that's okay. Let's share it and let's really dive in, because this is a worldwide audience that we're speaking to tonight. And I'm going to bring on our 2022 International Internet Radio Hall of Fame Broadcasting Lifetime Achiever, who's also enshrinee and disc jockey with his doctorate afforded by the University of Michigan, Oladele M. Ngozi, a.k.a. Dr. O, the man behind it all.
Well,
Dr.
first of all,
O,
I
your
want to come on
life.
and say something. Well, first of all, I want to say something. First of all, thank you to our wonderful guests tonight. And they're doing a great job, Gregory, Chelsea, and Terrain. I just want to come on and say something about courage, okay? And I'm glad Sister Bessie is on. Sister Bessie, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. This young lady, and let the language be clear tonight, was the nominee for the International Radio Hall of Fame, the class of 2021. Talking about courage and resiliency. She missed the Hall of Fame that year by one vote, family. One vote from the folks in Stockholm. And she stayed resilient. She stayed focused for 4 years. Went through a lot of trials and tribulations. I am proud, as a producer, to say that this young lady, at our ONE Honors, which is our most sacred night in December, on the first Tuesday, that she will be enshrined by our company with world recognition. I will say this. Sister Bessie Truther is a 2025 International Internet Radio Hall of Fame broadcasting enshrinee and the first host on our network that will be lifetime achieved in the same year for the class of 2025. I'm going to let Sister Bessie talk after this. She is a profile in courage. I'll be back at 4 Ngozi time at the end of the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. O, and congratulations to you, Sister Bessie.
Well, thank you, and keep going. Whoever you are out there, no matter what knocks you down, get back up and keep fighting for yourself. Because the only one can do it is you. So that's all I have to say. And thank you so much for your guests. And thank you so much, Genesis. This is a wonderful, inspiring show. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, and thank you so much. And thank you, Gregory and Terrain, for asking that question. And Chelsea, you didn't get to answer this question yet, but how do you remain steadfast during the storms in your life?
So for me, the thing that centers me even today is my faith in Jesus Christ. But steadfastness to me doesn't mean pretending everything's okay. It means giving yourself permission to feel everything, but still choosing to rise. In my circumstance, with writing Sticks and Stones, it taught me that. I gave myself space to name the pain, to talk about suicidal ideation, heartbreak, masking, anxiety, but I didn't let those things define me. I remained steadfast by giving the storm a voice. Through poems, through truth, through the neurodivergent lens that I used to think was a weakness, but I now see as a sacred gift. Even on the days I felt like crumbling, I told myself, put it in a poem and then keep going. So yeah, to build on what everybody else had already said, Terrain and Gregory and even Sister Betsy, you just gotta keep going because it's your life and you know your own divine purpose and why you are here, and you have to stay focused on that. Let that be your anchor to keep sailing, whether the seas are calm or whether the seas are choppy.
Hmm. Beautiful, beautifully said. And I love how each one of us has interwoven some form or fashion our faith and discussed that tonight. And for those of you out there who may not, believe in Jesus Christ or God or whatnot, I want you to lean into your own personal faith journey and what does your spirituality look like. Um, One of the things that helped me personally remain steadfast during the storms of life was not only my faith, but it was also different literary means. So whether it was books or different art forms, music, because sometimes whenever I was going through, the darkness, I had a miscarriage and I had to have surgery to remove the baby. But what people did not know is I was very much pregnant and looked very much pregnant. And I went to work, with my big belly or whatnot. But what people didn't know, when some people would ask me, how's the baby? The baby had passed and the baby was inside of me for 3 weeks. Past before they even allowed me to have the surgery, which was a DNC. And here in the state of Texas, they have to code it as an abortion, even though I was not having an abortion. But the sun during my storm came out whenever we had our rainbow baby, who's now 10 months. And sometimes I don't always speak on, the things that happened to me personally, but I felt led to share that in case there's a woman who's listening tonight who may have dealt with some form or fashion of loss, whether it was a stillbirth, a miscarriage, a miscarriage, or infertility issues or whatnot. And that could be your own storm, but I'm here to let you know that it's not always going to it's not always going to be dark, and it's not always going to get dark. But if you think about it and you think about when the storms come, it always gets dark before it gets light. But then when that rain and thunderstorm is over, you start to see the rainbows in the sky, or you start to see the sun popping back out through the glimmers of the clouds or whatnot. So if you're a visual person, think about the seasons in your life that the storms were passing, but then also think about the images in your life or any visual cues whenever it start to get light, and allow yourself to hold on to that whenever you feel like your body or your mind or circumstances may want to take you back to that gloomy day or those gloomy days. So those are some of the things that helped me remain steadfast during my storm. Movies, listening to various songs and paying attention to the lyrics that I was hearing, and also journaling. Journaling is such a powerful tool where you could write out your feelings and then you could go back and reflect on what you wrote and how it spoke to you, and just sit with your feelings and emotions and help you kind of go through undoing some of the brain fog that you had. And then most importantly, just lean into your faith with your creator and maker, and allow your creator and maker to speak to you internally. And as you are doing the work internally, how are you showing up externally? So just think about that. So my other question, and I know we talked about this a bit, is what keeps you motivated despite everything that has happened. And I know, Gregory, you shared about that and terrain, and so have you, Chelsea. But is there anything else that has helped you motivated outside of your faith and the connection with a friend who came in and loved on you, Gregory, and encouraged you? What else was your motivation?
Yeah, my motivation outside of what I stated earlier, as far as living, my motivation was really to be able to give back. And I think when, I was dealing with the throes of everything that was going on in my life, and just knowing at the age of 50 years being diagnosed with cancer and praying that if I have a second chance on life, what am I going to do with that? I became, an advocate for those that and otherwise wouldn't have a voice to advocate for themselves. I became basically a beacon of hope for those, demonstrating that you can live and thrive as in unison with the disease. I became pretty much an individual that poured into the advocation and education of this disease, which, to your listeners that may not be fully aware of this blood cancer that I've mentioned before, multiple myeloma, you hear about all of the other cancers from breast cancer to thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, so forth and so on, which are very common in the world today. But multiple myeloma being one of the most expensive cancers in the world today to treat, one of the most expensive cancers to actually diagnose, and one of the most horrific cancers that hit the ethnic group of African Americans probably 2 to 3x more than any other ethnic culture. So for me, it became my mission, it became my passion, it became a part of my DNA to really elevate this awareness about this disease, knowing that I've had a second chance on life. And so when you have a second chance on life, if that's not your motivator to do something good, to add value and to impact those around you in the world today, I don't know what else I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for sharing that. And Chelsea and Terrain, I want you all to let that marinate before I ask y'all to pour into that. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring on our third guest of the night. It is our 2020 International Internet Radio Hall of Fame broadcasting nominee and our historical longest tenured host for 10 years at Beverly Nation Online Radio, which is Antonia Batts. She's our third guest caller. Welcome, Antonia.
Hello. Hi, how are you, Genesis? And how are you?
I am doing well.
Wonderful. Well, you're very humble considering all you have been through. And Gregory is very brave. And I would like to say, I know there's a saying that goes, only the good die young, but it's not true because obviously you all have persevered, and I'm quite sure with the faith that you have a ways to go from here, by the grace of God, then some. So I just wanted to say I love you all's attitude. And, I'm under the weather. That's why I'm talking a little slowly right now. But that's okay. I believe in, God, and I guarantee you nothing can turn me back. I don't care who says what out here. I'm going to adopt both of your attitudes, and hopefully everything will be coasting right along from here on. And additionally, I did want to say thank you for allowing me to speak, because it's nice to hear people of courage who can turn around and not only profess that they have weathered the storm, but they can also say that they look forward to the future based on their faith. So congratulations to Sister Bessie also. And I just want to say that's wonderful to hear people like yourselves still hanging in there and not carrying the bitternesses. God bless you both, and you take care.
Thank you so much, Antonia. And before you go, did you have, since you heard Gregory speak, did you have any questions for Chelsea DeVries or Terrain Brown, who are also panelists here tonight?
Well, I believe your guest said that he had cancer.
Yes,
I've
Mr.
ran
Gregory.
yes, I believe with him saying he had cancer, it was something that brought him through based on his belief and his faith. And not that it happens for everyone all of the time, but there have been, let's just say, a couple of fellow veterans when I would go to the veterans hospital or what other event, they may have said that they have been diagnosed with cancer, and I sit down and they don't even know I'm personally praying for them because they've just been through so much. And if people were to say to, pick at a person who has an illness, I hope they have a heart and a subconscious to realize that is not how you navigate life, and think that you should be able to treat other people when they're trying to get through the worst points in your life. How the saying goes, don't kick a person when they're down. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say, Genesis. I have my own thoughts with, medical situations off and on at times, but I had prayed my way through and had a pretty good diagnosis eventually. It took a while to weather the storm by, very good experts. So I understand what you're going through. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, Antonia, for chiming in tonight and sharing. So now we're going to jump back into the conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Chelsea, since we just heard Gregory. So what keeps you motivated despite everything that's happening? And one of the things I wanted to call out was you said your diagnosis with Asperger's syndrome, so part of the autism thing. How did you stay motivated whenever you got the news? Or if you don't want to use that situation, share something else.
So, yeah, when I got diagnosed with Asperger's, it kind of was a bit of an earth-shattering revelation, but at the same time, it made everything make sense about me, like why I never felt like I fit in, like to any, like all the way through school and college and even in workplaces as an adult. I just always felt like what's different about me, but I didn't really know what it was. But I always pressed into my faith. In terms of what happened to me in Sticks and Stones, one of the things that I always do wherever I'm working is I bring the people that I work alongside to God in prayer. I write down all of their names on a piece of paper, and then I pray for each one of them, individually. And another thing that I did in the circumstance of Sticks and Stones was that I basically would give a lot of gifts to the people there, basically as a way to encourage them, inspire them, and just so seeds of love and kindness towards them. And the thing about planting seeds is you don't always get to see the fruit at the end of it, when the harvest time comes. So it's I still believe that all the seeds that I've ever sown in love in any workplace, the one in Sticks and Stones, and any one that I've worked for currently, I don't regret doing any of that. I just always believe that it was what God asked me to do, and I did it, and I just stand by it, and I believe in it. And that's really what motivated me, outside of as well as getting the poems down, sharing my feelings, sharing my thoughts, telling my story, and then having people then, nowadays resonate with the poems and the story and saying, I finally feel seen for the first time in my life, or you put words to what I couldn't explain. Like that to me, or really just made it all like matter that much more and motivated me through it all.
Thank you so much. And one thing that you shared is how you bring all the people that you're working with and you write their names down in prayer. And then also the title of your book, Sticks and Stones. As you keep saying sticks and stones, the thing that sticks out to me is that sentiment that some of us may have heard when we were a kid, sticks and stones. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but sticks and stones may not break my bones, or words may not matter. I'm totally butchering it, but it's that sentiment. And every time you say that, that pops into my head, and it kind of takes me back to that childhood. So, thanks for sharing that. And if either you or Terrain or Gregory know the full sentiment there, let me know, because I totally butchered it, but y'all get what I'm saying.
It is, I believe, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. I think that is how it goes. But you basically had the right idea.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, thank y'all. I had a brain fog, or some people say a brain fart moment. Now, Terrain, I want to ask you this same question, but I know you did not have both of your parents at a young age, and you are Caribbean background, similar to myself. So I want to ask you, what helped you remain motivated despite, not having your parents at an early age, and how did that affect you as the man you are today?
Well, one of the greatest sources of motivation growing up in that situation where I wasn't raised by my mother or my father was my grandmother, rest in peace, who passed away December of last year. She made me feel like I wasn't missing out on anything. And I only realized that I didn't have the experience of both parents from other people. So my grandmother did a really good job of being there as the mother for me, as the father for me, because I grew up not wanting anything more than she was able to provide. Like, I was very content. It was only as I got older on I truly understood the impact of the situation that I was going through. So one thing that I learned, especially in my 20s, from that experience was that the structure is totally different when you have both parents and when you don't have both parents. And what I mean by that is when I played sports, it was often myself and the coach, whereas you see all these other young men with their parents cheering them on. I remember the very first time my parents came to it was a baseball game, and it was so out of the ordinary that I had one of the worst games of my entire sports career because, one, it was uncomfortable having them there, and two, it was a support system that I wasn't accustomed to. So when I wanted to stay motivated in myself, I turned to the coaches at that time when I couldn't turn back to my grandmother because I was no longer living with her. So they provided me with the structure of a mother, of a father, and then I learned that also in school with the English teacher. She was very instrumental in my life. So the theme in my life growing up was there was people there for me when others weren't. And that motivated me because that developed a passion in me that regardless of your hair color, your eye color, your sexual orientation, your gender, your religious background, your political belief, there are people that's going to enter in your lives that's going to leave footprints on your soul. And when they do, this is going to help you develop into the person that you want to be. So when I look back on everything that I've went through, I've been truly blessed that each time I thought that I was alone, there was someone there to remind me that I wasn't. And that is why I do the work that I do today, because there's so many young men and women especially who don't have someone in their life like I had someone in my life. And I want to be that grandmother to them. I want to be that coach to them. I want to be that big brother to them because I know how it feels when someone is there to support you. So that is what keeps me motivated today and definitely tomorrow.
Wow. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so glad I asked that question because if there is if there's someone out in the audience listening tonight that was not fortunate to have your mother or father, I hope Terrain sharing that gave you a little bit of hope and encouragement to lean in on who you do have and also be the change that you want to see and be that thermometer. Set the temperature for the room that you're in. And now, y'all, this is going to bring us to the final thoughts from the panelists before we jump into Ngozi time and wind down. So I'm going to start, since I just heard you, Terrain, I'm going to start with Chelsea first, and then I'll go to Gregory, and then I'll have you share your final thoughts for everything that we have discussed regarding the segment tonight. Chelsea?
Basically, my thoughts would be that tonight's segment really just was a powerful thing to be a part of, first of all, and just everybody's story, Terrain's story, your story, Genesis, and and Gregory, as well as Sister Betsy and Unique's testimonies tonight really just spoke to me even more so, like going into the new chapter of my life. I actually, this coming up next week, I start a brand new job where I'm actually going to be working as a teacher, teaching special needs children like myself, so neurodivergent kids. And I just really feel like everyone sharing their stories, it's motivated me that much more to just show up and be the change you want to see in the world, like pouring into the future and continuing to do the things that I believe that God has called me to do in that regard. So, in that way, I feel like tonight's segment really just, again, was something that I am glad I was a part of.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, and congratulations for your new job that you're getting ready to walk into. And I know that there is a reason, a purpose behind you making the switch into this industry. And I pray that you have some amazing kids as the school year begins, and that you do amazing and mighty works. And thank you so much for sharing and holding space with us. And please stand by. Gregory, please share your final thoughts for tonight. Based on what we talked about and some of the guest callers.
Well, first, I'd like to say certainly it's been an honor and a privilege to be a part of this guest panel. I've certainly learned a lot, as we talk about navigating through the pain. It brings me back to the context of Isaiah 54:17, which basically refers to no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Understanding what it takes, as we've talked about in this panel, being mindful of our faith, which is our standard, as our rock, as our soul nurturing to help elevate us, to lift us up in those times of trials and tribulations and give us that sense of security when we need to lean into something for peace and prosperity as we move forward to receive our overall joy. And I guess the second part of this, as we've talked about, really the mental fortitude with regards to getting back up, after life has thrown us a blow or we've been dealt with life circumstances. I think what I've heard tonight reminds me of something that I hear my pastor talks about all the time, particularly for me as I was going through my trials and tribulations early on, is number one, certainly being humble in the presence of knowing that you still have, the ability to see, to breathe, to touch, to smell, to feel, but also the nurturing aspect to be able to count it all joy and understand that in life, we have to be not only humble, but we have to exude the gratitude of appreciation in life as we move forward. And that's been a message that I've heard from everyone that has shared their story tonight. And I'd like to just end on that note and say thank you very much for giving.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gregory, and thank you for being here and just sharing your story with the audience. And now, Terrain, please share your final thoughts for the evening.
Yes, thank you so much for the space. I've heard some fantastic stories, some fantastic sorts of inspiration, and I want to share that what I've learned from everyone's story today is that life will continue to get better if you continue to live your life in a way that you want it to get better. And this has left me thinking of some of the difficulties that maybe I've experienced recently, where even myself at this stage in my life, I may get a little discouraged, but I know there's people out there that are providing a space like this one, that's providing support like Gregory and Chelsea and so many others. So what I've taken away from this is that if there's ever a moment where I begin to maybe doubt myself, it could be imposter syndrome, people pleasing, whatever the case is, I can pull from some of the stories that I've heard today to keep myself inspired and definitely motivated, because if we all can do it on the individual level, imagine how much more we can accomplish on a group level as well. So thank you so much, Genesis, for the opportunity.
My pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing and holding space, Terrain. And now, y'all, please stand by. We're going to dive into Ngozi time, and once we're done, we're going to close out this segment, and I will come back on after Dr. O.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the folks at Counting Out Robbery tonight. What an outstanding show. Array of prowess that is undeniable by Justice Morris Kemp. And congratulations to the young lady on her 21st WN All-Time Connection record with the Darlene Lawrence Championship, honoring our late great Hall of Famer. And what a wonderful night. 2 in a row, y'all. I love it. I love it. I love it. Also, Unique Parker and I will always say to all the people who are listening tonight, including our wonderful guests, we have a show, and it's called The Groove. It's on www.podbean.com. What you're going to do is reach us. What you're going to do is type in the search WNN Communications, and then download the show from your Apple Store or Google Play Store. There's a musical, outstanding beret, a music audio podcast that we give as our gift to the world. So stay tuned. Tomorrow night, we come back on this outstanding network with the person I just aforementioned. A wonderful, outstanding new host. Her name is Unique Parker. Name of the show is Not the Ordinary. 9:30 Eastern Daylight Time on the one and only Beverly Nation. Of course, WBN Communications advertising to Ngozi Time Multimedia. Pinterest, Google, Instagram, and X. Follow us Twitter. Ola Dali Malayo and Ngozi at Facebook. Any comments, suggestions to our wonderful program tonight? That goes with my@gmail.com. I am your mother and father's favorite producer. Afforded by Colgate University and the University of Michigan. Dr. Ola Dali Malayo and Ngozi. Lonnie and Debbie's baby boy saying good night and good luck. To all the folks out there on Armed Force Radio that support us on a constant basis. And now to exceptional accolade, the 2024 WBN Battle Network Stars Champion, class of 2021, here at this Historic Network, Genesis Amaris Kemp.
Thank you so much, Dr. O. And thank you to our worldwide listeners that tuned in tonight for this segment to support Chelsea DeFries, Gregory Proctor, and Terrain Brown. All of these panelists have incredible things that they are doing online as well as outside of the online platform. So I encourage you to connect with them and continue to link arms and follow their journeys. So Gregory Proctor, he has his own podcast called Cut to the Chase. Terrain Brown has a podcast called Behind the Shades. Chelsea DeFries is a PR publicist and now a teacher. And then myself, I have a podcast called GEMS, GEMS, with Genesis Amaris Kemp. All of these panelists have been on my platform so you could hear some of their stories there as well. But I want to encourage you, audience, tonight is to think about the pain that you have went through, gone through, or currently in, and ask yourself, how do I navigate through this pain? How do I come out on the other side? What is this pain causing me to look like? What is this pain causing me to feel like? What is this pain drawing me to? How am I going to overcome this pain? Whether you need to journal about it, whether you need to exercise through it, whether you need to link arms with somebody, a trusted person that could be that sounding board for you, that is not going to judge or condemn you or anything like that. This pain, yes, it's pain. Yes, it's going to hurt, but think about this. You can't have the testimony without going through the test. You can't have the rainbows without going through the storm. You can't have the breakthrough without being broken in order to make it through. You are an overcomer, and your life is meaningful, it's purposeful, and you are destined for greatness. But I need you, man or woman, to believe in yourself again and live again. I'm Genesis Amaris Kemp, your host tonight, and the panelists that you heard tonight were Chelsea DeFries, Gregory Proctor, and Terrain Brown. And I'm going to allow my guests to plug their social media platform. That way you could connect with them and we could do life together. We are better when we come together. So, Chelsea, can you share your prominent place where they could connect with you?
Listeners can connect with me on Instagram at Smart Cookie Files, and then also on TikTok at Chelsea Lynn Poetry.
Thank you. Terrain, please share how the listeners could connect with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So anyone who wants to get in contact with me can do one of two ways. You can email me at behindtheshadesinterviews@gmail.com, all one word, as well as you can visit my website at www.behindtheshades.ca. Those are the two best ways to contact me, and all my social media and all my experiences, expertise are there. And thank you again for the opportunity, Genesis.
Thank you, Terrain. And Gregory, please share with the listening audience how they could connect with you.
Yeah, for me, Genesis, it's quite easy. Gregory O. Proctor on any social media platform. That's my handle. You can reach me on LinkedIn, IG, Facebook, via Gregory O. Proctor. And from there, you get to see all of the great things that I'm working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gregory. And audience, thank you so much for tuning in once again to this segment and just supporting myself and the guest panelists. For those of you who are interested in connecting with me, whether you want to share your story or you want me to interview you, just go to GEMS, GEMS, with Genesis Amaris Kemp on social media, and you will connect with me. I hope you have a blessed and pleasant evening, and until the next show, be sure to tune in to Unique Parker tomorrow night here on WBNN, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. Have a good night, y'all, and thank you once again